Hello, everyone. Welcome to our SPI webinar in collaboration with MSA. I'm Amélie Leduc, Marketing Supervisor for Events and Promotions here at SPI. Really happy to be with you on this Wednesday, June 2nd. Summer is just around the corner, so hopefully in your part of the country, it's bright and sunny, as it is in my part of the country. So today we're going to talk about, tasks performed around exposed edges, which can present significant safety risk for people working at height. Obviously, we want to avoid disasters. So it's important to understand the issues of sharp edges, increased fall distances, and this is why we did this webinar today with MSA. Last year, we discussed quite a bit the changes to the CSA Z259.2.2 standard. So today we're not going to go in depth, but we're going to briefly review it while helping you to better understand the technology of self-retracting lifelines, and especially how to choose the one that best suits your tasks, your needs. So finally, one of the goal of this webinar is really to show you how SPI and MSA can help you get the most out of your PPE investment. So for those who don't know SPI, but also for those who know SPI, maybe you don't know SPI this way, which is our new way, I would say. We launched this week our 360 safety solution, and I could explain to you in depth. I could give you, 1,000 words to explain it, but I think that a video is worth 1,000 words. So we'll show you a quick video that we did and that we're proud to share with you today. So again, just want to give you the heads up that the sound might be high or higher or loud or whatnot. So just adjust your computer because we cannot adjust any sound on our end. It's really up to you. So I don't want you to get your ears hurt. So we'll start the video right now.
SPI has been your partner for over 50 years. We have built our reputation by caring for your health and safety.
Whether you need a complete solution or support for a specific need, SPI is here to help.
We are committed to helping keep your people healthy and safe.
We assess your risks.
I'm passionate about helping my clients understand and manage their risks.
We always look for the most appropriate solutions to make your workplace safer.
Controlling your risks so you can work safely.
We believe competent workers are safe workers. You can count on our years of training experience.
Beyond equipment, we provide you with solutions.
We rely on SPI's rental program when the stakes are high.
Our certified technicians ensure your equipment is compliant.
Behind the scenes, we are looking out for you by maintaining a record of your certifications.
We are here to help you achieve occupational health and safety workplace excellence.
Together, we can grow your health and safety culture so your employees can go home safe and sound.
All right, I will have to flip my computer. Just give me 1 second. Technology sometimes has its limitations. So, all right. Okay, so we're back. So yes, so basically, this is SPI, and a lot of you didn't know that we could offer a 360 solution, and that's why we wanted to bring that out. So I invite you to visit our website if you want to learn more about it. But basically, we're here to help you at every step of your health and safety. So I'd like to introduce our guest speakers, our guest expert, actually, Anne Osborne. Anne, are you with us?
I am.
Hi, Anne. How are you?
I am very good.
Is it sunny in your part of your country? Because I guess we're not on the same.
No, Pittsburgh's not a very sunny place.
Oh, really? Okay, sorry about that. Don't want to brag about ours. I'm glad you could join. So Anne is remote, so she's not in studio with us today. So Anne, what's your role at MSA?
Yeah, so my name's Ann Osborne. I am the segment marketing manager for the construction segment here at MSA Safety. And I cover construction products for North America, mainly focusing on fall protection, which is obviously what we're going to talk about today.
Great. All right. So we're with the right person then. We're in good hands. So let's not forget about Rico, our web designer, webmaster, control room technician. Call him whatever you want. He's our go-to person. So if you have any issues with the console today, or anything platform related, you can chat us in the question box. Actually, you can use the question box. Rico will be able to help you out. And that brings me to tell you that if you want to ask questions, that's also where you're going to ask them. I will ask the questions for you as we go along, if the flow allows it. Otherwise, I will keep it for the question period at the end. But by all means, there are no stupid questions. All of the questions are pertinent, because if you're wondering something, then someone else may be. And when talking about health and safety, we want your questions to be answered. The webinar is going to last 60 minutes approximately, at the very maximum. And if you want to take notes or whatnot, because we are not sharing the PowerPoint, so by all means grab a piece of paper and a pen. But we will provide you with the replay link tomorrow. So if you want to watch some segments that you may need a further understanding or whatnot, so we will send that link to you tomorrow. So without any further ado, Anne, I'll let you start your presentations by explaining us, precisely the points that you're going to cover today.
Sounds good. So today we're going to talk about leading edge. Leading edge, and what are some of the applications you might run into when it comes to fall hazards and leading edge. We'll talk about the products, what makes them unique, how they're tested, how can you identify a leading edge fall protection product, and then we'll talk a little bit in more detail about what's available to everyone here today as far as leading edge fall protection.
Great. So before we get into the subject, we want to ask you an interactive questions. You can answer in the question box, so not on your screen for those who are used to. So in the question box, we want to know what type of applications would you use, a traditional or overhead SRL versus leading edge. So we want to get to know you, see who's on the web with us right now. So please send us your answer through the question box. That will help us to better answer questions as we go along, or actually just deliver the information on leading edge. So Anne, what is exactly leading edge and its application?
Yeah, so I think the terminology leading edge has been around, especially in the construction industry, for a while. When people hear leading edge, they often think of an application like deck laying, where you have an edge, an exposed edge that's constantly changing or moving away from you. But what we'll talk today about is leading edge and how it relates to fall hazards and fall protection. So when I talk about leading edge, we're talking about it in terms of an SRL, or self-retracting lifeline. And in a leading edge situation, what we typically say is a leading edge situation is if you're in a fall event and the lifeline of your connecting device, like your SRL, could come in contact with a sharp edge and be severed, that is a leading edge application. So again, in a fall event, if your lifeline could come in contact with a sharp edge, that's kind of typically what it is in a nutshell. Now, typically you see two images here. The one on the left, a lot of the time, you're going to have leading edge situations when you are tied off below your D-ring. So most leading edge situations happen at lower level tie off. That's how you often get that lifeline potentially coming up against an exposed edge, is when you're tied off below your D-ring. But there are situations, as you can see on the picture, to the right where you could be tied off overhead, yet in a fall event, your lifeline could still come in contact and maybe drag against a sharp edge. And we would still consider that a potentially leading edge application. So it's really about understanding your fall hazards and what might happen in a fall event to the lifeline, and where is it coming in contact with.
Great, thanks for clarifying. So even though there are sharp edges in various types of industries, there are some that expose workers more frequently, right?
Yeah, what I've seen in the past few years is, the concept of leading edge fall protection is really most prevalent in the construction industry. And you do see it across all markets: construction, oil and gas, general industry. But in construction, we see it the most. And that's really because of some of the applications going on, roof decking, concrete decking, bridge assembly, basic steel erection. A lot of the times in construction, you don't have an anchor point overhead, so workers have to tie off at their feet or look for anchor points at lower levels, which can sometimes create a potential leading edge hazard. But also, in construction, the environment's always changing, and you don't always have permanent anchor points. So it just is a much more variable and quick moving environment where leading edge presents itself. But I do have customers, I've seen people ask for it in general industry, in certain plants, where they know that in a fall event their lifeline might come in contact with an edge. So it is across the board, but we see it the most in construction.
All right. So as I mentioned before, we've talked a lot about the CSA change, but can you maybe just summarize the classification for SRLs with that new revision of the CSA Z259.2.2-17 standard?
Sure. So, quick review, and I'm sure everyone's getting more and more familiar with this. I believe the new SRL classifications went into effect in 2019. I believe it was August 2019. And what that means is going into effect is manufacturers have to now manufacture product that is updated to the latest .2.2-17. And what that meant for a manufacturer like us, like MSA, who makes fall protection, is you have to label your SRLs according to one of 4 classes that now exist with CSA. So the first class SRL, that's going to be, to put it in a nutshell, that's going to be your basic self-retracting lifeline. That is meant for overhead tie-off and does not, has not been tested against an edge. So you can see there, cannot bear against an edge or surface during a fall arrest. So this is going to be, if you're familiar with MSA's VTEC Mini PFL, just a standard overhead self-retracting lifeline. The next one is class SRL-R. That's a SRL device with integral means for assisted rescue. So a rescuer type device, I think it used to be called a type 2 or type 3, often used in confined space. And then you have class SRL-LE. That is really what we're going to be talking about today. So that's a self-retracting lifeline, almost like a class SRL, except it has leading edge capability, meaning it's been tested, and we'll talk about the test, to those leading edge requirements that make it suitable for lower level tie-off and potentially for a fall over an edge. And then the final class is the SRL-LER. That's a mouthful. That's very similar to your rescuer or your old type 2, except this classification of product is basically a rescuer that also has leading edge capability. So those are a quick summary of the 4 classes, but again, today we are focused on letter C, which is that class SRL-LE.
All right. And what makes the leading edge product unique, Anne?
Yeah, so when we start talking about SRL-LE or leading edge SRLs, one of the things that you'll notice that is a little bit different compared to maybe your classic overhead SRL is you'll notice some additional or more outstanding energy absorbers. So here are my 2 products here. It's a V-Edge personal fall limiter and a V-Edge self-retracting lifeline. And I'm pointing to the energy absorbers that you can see there. You'll notice if you compare it to one of our non-leading edge products, the energy absorber is a little bit more prevalent in a leading edge product. And we'll talk about why that is in a minute here.
Yes, there you go. So what happens then in a standard SRL?
So this is just a really simple kind of cartoon drawing of what can happen if you take a non-leading edge SRL and you fall over an edge. So a standard class SRL, oftentimes, the energy absorber is in the housing of the unit. And as you see in the first picture here, where it's attached, they're tied off below the D-ring. And if they fall over an edge, that can create a pinch point on the corner there on the edge, and you have forces going into that lifeline or energy going into that lifeline. That's not what you want, because that's how the line can break if there's too much pressure applied there. Now, if you look at these pictures, this is again, same cartoon, but showing with a leading edge SRL. And in a leading edge SRL, the energy absorber is almost always found, not necessarily in the housing of the unit, but close to the worker or on the worker's back, as sometimes we often say. And if you look at the first picture there, you can see that that pinch point is still there, but because the energy absorber is now closer to the body, it really takes away some of the energy that was going into that previous pinch point, and that's what we want. We don't want there to be any pinch points in the line that could create any type of severing in a fall event. So the energy absorber is really key in a leading edge product.
It's pretty cool how you've demonstrated that with the cartoon there. It's
Oh yeah, that was one of my engineer's genius ideas.
Yeah, they are. It's self-explanatory. So how are they tested, those leading edge products?
Yeah, so the CSA test, it's actually very, very similar to ANSI. ANSI is the regulatory body in the US, CSA is obviously in Canada. The tests are very similar, and it's a very robust test to be able to label your product as an SRL-LE. There's a couple things that happen. So there's a real special drop test for leading edge. It is, we do our own testing here in our lab, and we have a structure set up. And what you have to do is you have to do some drop tests with your leading edge SRL over a smooth steel edge that has a 0.25 millimeter radius. I know that may be hard to imagine what that is, but it's very, very sharp. It's like doing a drop test over a knife blade, really. It's a very sharp test. So you have to do two different types of drop tests. You do the perpendicular drop test, which is, just a classic drop over that steel edge. Obviously, the line cannot break. And then you also do a drop test at an angle, and we call it the offset drop test. And what that kind of emulates or represents is, we know that in real life, workers don't always stay exactly right in front of their anchor point. You walk a little bit from side to side. And what that represents is, what can happen when you walk a little bit off to the side, which is a swing fall. So that offset drop test sort of emulates a swing fall, and you do the test to, allow your leading edge SRL to swing across the edge, and it also obviously cannot break in that situation. So you have those two drop tests, and then after each one, there's also a tensile strength test. So they do an additional 1,000-pound pull test on the SRL after it's been dropped, just to make sure that that line is still really solid and intact. And of course, some of these tests have to occur in various temperatures, degrees, environmental conditions as well. So it's a very robust test.
Yes, and you guys have a pretty cool video that shows that, which we're going to show right now. So again, we'll share a short video. So again, for the sound, the noise, just make sure you adjust your computer, and the video lasts about a minute as well. So let's start right now. All right. That video, Anna, are you still there? Just to
I
make sure.
am.
Okay, good. So yeah, that's a pretty cool, pretty cool video of how it's tested. Really well
It's a
done.
great way to, we can talk about the test, but it's a great way to visualize, that robustness and that, that the type of test we're talking about, where you can see it being dropped over a steel edge. It's pretty significant.
Yes, and unfortunately, some people may have not seen the video. That's also with your platform, the or your firewall or whatnot. Once we send that replay link, David, maybe you can watch it there. Otherwise, just send us an email and we'll see if we can, give you a link so you can watch that video. So it's very interesting. So, all right. So we'll ask you another question before we move on with the presentation. So we want to test your knowledge. How do you know that your product is leading edge? Is it because your representative confirmed it to you? Is it because you just know it? Or is it because it's written on the label? So we'll give you a few seconds to answer. And yeah, might be surprised by the participants' response there. We were anyways in our other in our previous webinar. So interesting. The votes are coming in. Yeah. All right. So we'll see the results on the screen. Do you see them, Anne?
I do see them.
Okay, good. So are you surprised?
I think everyone here is just about got it. I love that my representative confirmed it to me, because your local MSA rep is always a great resource and trusted advisor. But ultimately, I think we know what the right answer is.
Yes, the label.
Yes, the label. That is your ultimate source of truth in identifying whether you've got a product that is rated for leading edge type work. And I think CSA does a great job, especially now with the 4 classes that they have, of that being the ultimate source of truth for understanding whether your product is for leading edge. And I've got a CSA label here. It might be small and hard to read, but you'll ultimately know if it's labeled to a class SRL-LE, like we talked about, then it meets the CSA product requirements for leading edge. You'll also find that manufacturers, throughout North America are also really trying to be very helpful in giving workers really just key indicators and helping them at a glance understand whether something is leading edge or not. I know, MSA, we put kind of a sharp corner, or we've got a leading edge symbol that we use that we put on the energy absorber to help people in differentiating between a leading edge product versus not. Other manufacturers do color coding. There's a couple different ways. You can always talk to your manufacturer about that, but ultimately the source of truth is going to be by reading the label, which is a critical component of the SRL anyway, and is something you should be reviewing before, as your pre-use inspection. We did talk about, and I have a little caution here, we do talk about how leading edge units often have that energy absorber that is close to the worker's back. There's usually like an external energy absorber there. That's a good indicator, but not like a final source of truth. There could be other products out there that have that are not rated for leading edge, or products that don't have it and maybe are. Again, I just want to kind of reiterate that your source of truth is going to be that label. If you're following CSA, you want to be looking for that class SRL-LE.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it, the inspection right before for your equipment. And if you're not sure what to inspect, then that probably need to do that competent inspector course to validate, everything you've got to check. But definitely, yeah, watch the label and not just assume. We've talked about CSA earlier with in the other webinar. We talked about gray zones in health and safety, and this brings me to this. Where is this going with the ANSI standard, the CSA standard? Some revisions are being done. What can we expect?
Yeah, I think really at a high level, There's just continued focus on strength and robustness for personal fault limiters and SRLs. ANSI is in the process of looking at their SRL classifications right now. I think CSA is a little bit ahead of the game on that. But leading edge is a big topic, and making sure that the product standards and the product development standards out there are, meeting real world applications. And I think one of the things that comes up, on in some of the discussions with some of these, standard bodies is, right now the leading edge test, there's one test protocol that's out there for CSA, and it's over a smooth steel edge. And, in real life, there are lots of different types of materials in which you might find yourself in a leading edge scenario. For example, falls over concrete, falls over rebar or decking. Like I said, the test is very specific right now. So you do want to be mindful and understanding of what types of edges you have on the job site, and then, checking with your manufacturer of that leading edge product and seeing, have they done any independent testing against materials other than what CSA has put out there? And I think you'll find that a few manufacturers have done that. MSA has done that. For example, one of our leading edge products, we have some specific testing that was conducted on concrete, and we put that in the user manual as far as what that test consisted of. And that way you can sort of compare it to your real life scenario and try and make an educated decision as to, ensuring that this product is a good fit for your edge. But it's just, it's a common topic that's coming up, and making sure that, these real life scenarios of different materials, that we're continuing to talk about those and discuss that, as manufacturers, and, helping educate you on what may or may not work for leading edge products that are out there today.
Absolutely. The basis of health and safety is education for sure.
Yes.
All right. So what does MSA have available on the market right now?
So I talked about a few of these products. You saw one in the video. We've got, for leading edge, a full line. So whether you need a personal fall limiter, those usually run, I think it's like 2.7 meters in length. So something that is shorter length than the worker would wear on their back. We have two products, V-Edge cable and V-Edge web. The one thing, I won't get into too much detail here, but the one thing that we hear a lot from customers is leading edge products, they are more robust, right? They have to meet that test. So because they're more sturdy and there's a little bit more to them to meet that test, we often hear that workers say leading edge products are very heavy. So weight matters on a worker's back a lot of the time, especially if you're in construction. You can be carrying 30 pounds of tools on you, so every ounce counts. So to help kind of deal with that weight challenge, MSA does have a leading edge product that is made with web and not cable. We were the first to have this out in the industry when we launched it with ANSI a few years back, and this does have CSA SRL-LE classification as well now, so you can get this in Canada. But it takes off about 1 pound up to 2 pounds of weight compared to a traditional cable leading edge unit. So it is a lighter weight solution. It meets all of the requirements, but just helps kind of combat some of those weight complaints we hear when workers are struggling with leading edge PFLs. Now,
Anne, there's a question, and just before you move on from the web, are they as strong as the cable version?
Yeah, they meet all the same requirements.
Okay.
What I do here is sort of like, well, then why would you, ever use cable? I think there's some applications in which cable does better. For example, welding. When you're dealing with welding, often cable would be, a better solution. Also, we just talked about specific testing, independent testing that MSA has done. Right now, only our V-Edge cable PFL. We've done some independent testing on that for concrete. So in a specific concrete application, if you're looking at that, you may want to, look at the cable manual and see if it makes sense to use cable versus web. So there are some differences, but they absolutely both meet the CSA SRL-LE classifications, the exact same test.
Okay, good, thank you.
Feel confident in either, absolutely.
Okay, good. I know I cut you off with the question, but it was very...
That's okay. That's okay. Any other questions on those two before I kind of move over to longer length leading edge units, so the ones you won't wear on your back.
Okay, no, there aren't, so you can go ahead.
Okay.
Oops, sorry.
Well, that's
Okay.
okay.
All right. So
So
am I at the right slide, Anne?
you
Yeah.
are.
Okay, that's where you
You
wanted to
are.
go.
So
Okay.
the Leading Edge SRL-LE. So leading edge SRL, longer length. So when we talk about longer length, I'm talking a 20 foot, 20 or 30 foot or 50 foot leading edge unit. So this is not something that's going to be worn on the worker's back. So, you know, comfort isn't exactly the, you know, it's not one of the insights here. Instead, when we develop SRLs, one of the main focuses we put on, especially with the leading edge, is, you know, cost of ownership when it comes to our longer length SRLs. So there's a couple things we developed in our V-Edge longer length lines that really help manage that cost of ownership. So one of the things that I like to call out that's very unique to this product is the integrated roll cage. So I'm sure some of you are looking at that image and you're like, what is that crazy cage around the housing of the SRL? That's what we call the roll cage. Now, in a leading edge scenario, oftentimes we discuss this will be at foot level, so it'll be on the ground. And that roll cage helps protect the housing when used in foot level tie-off. It also kind of helps with mobility when the SRL is on the ground, so as the worker's kind of moving around, the SRL is rolling with them versus being dragged across the floor. So it's not only protecting the housing and giving you a longer life on that product, you know, but it's also helping a little bit with work mobility. We also have integrated into this product what we call a retraction dampening feature. We all know what's real life is when the worker's done at the end of the day, they unhook the snap hook and sometimes let that cable fly back into the housing, which can damage the product. And it can be dangerous to the people around them as well, but it can damage the product, and that's how you end up with pop-load indicators on snap hooks and damage to the housing because that cable's whipping around. So that retraction dampening feature, if that were to happen, it controls the rate of retraction of the cable. So it slowly goes back into the housing, again, helping to protect the longevity of the SRL and give you a longer life so you don't have all those pop snap hooks anymore. And if it does happen that you do have some damage to your SRL, one of the key features of this product is just overall ease of repair and reduced downtime. And what I mean by reduced downtime is, the components, required to replace or fix one of these SRLs, there's very few components. It's extremely easy to repair. We hear a lot of good feedback about how quick it is to just replace a few parts on these and turn it around, which again kind of helps with the cost of ownership. So you might be investing a lot in the product up front, when you buy it, but the overall longevity of life and the cost of ownership, you'll get a good long life out of that product.
Good, and this brings me to my next slide, Anne, because we've talked before, about being a 360 solution, and actually SPI as certified technicians for MSA SRLs or MSA products overall. So when the cost of ownership, we can help you, and I want to take a second to talk to you about that because it's an overlooked service at SPI, but we do have whole team. We have SAM services, which are mobile, they're mobile stations that can go to your office or to your plant or work site, and then they can actually do the maintenance or the inspection of your equipment there. We also have fixed stations here at different branches across Canada, but that's something that SPI can work in collaboration with MSA and can do. We can also rent a fleet of equipment or PPEs if you need to have them repaired or recertificate. Okay. Recertification, sorry. So I just wanted to take a minute to explain that because, as I mentioned, it's an overlooked service at SPI, but it will help people save money at the end, like you've mentioned, Anne, just before. So Anne, I'll let you talk about your program Dare to Compare.
Yeah, so we talked about a few products today related to Leading Edge. If you have a situation you're interested in trialing a product, please work with SPI or your local MSA territory sales manager. We have what we call Dare to Compare. So it's basically a trial program. So try it before you buy it. Or we can help you with samples, whether it be leading edge or just other new products that we've launched, where we can get you a sample, and that way you can put it into the field and actually try it for yourself. Before you go ahead and make that investment. We're very confident in our product. Once you try it, you will love it. So don't hesitate to, again, reach out to SPI or your local MSA sales rep to talk about how you can get those samples. And then kind of in conjunction with that, let's say you are looking to make some changes and switch from maybe a competitive unit to MSA after you've done that trial. We have some trade up programs to help make that more bearable for you. So for the products we talked about today, like the V-Edge personal fall limiters or a V-Edge self-retracting lifeline and longer lengths, we have what we call the trade up program, in the US is buy 25, get 5 free. I think our quantities are slightly different in Canada. Actually, it's much easier. The threshold's lower. I think it starts at 10 units. But you can, when you convert, if you buy a certain amount of units, you can get a few units for free to help you with that conversion as you're trading out product. So we have that program as well running through the end of 2021.
Great. Thanks, Anne, for mentioning that. And which actually, you mentioned if you want to have any questions or whatnot, that we're going to get into that question period. And on the screen, you have our contact information. So by all means, if you wish to join any of the program that Anne has mentioned, just reach out. I do have a couple questions, Anne, for you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, good. So you've talked a bit about concrete edges, but someone like Patrick wants to know if there are leading edge products that are rated especially for concrete edges.
I've not seen anything that I'm not seeing anything. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. That's like specifically called out as a concrete product, or specific to concrete. Again, because with CSA and its current test requirements, there's one test and it's for steel. However, like I said, you'll see manufacturers have done independent testing. So they've come up kind of with their own test for concrete, and they can give you specifics on that and what that test they performed was and what it entailed. So you can compare it to your real life scenario. But to my knowledge, I have never seen necessarily something promoted as a leading edge product specific to concrete. They all have to meet whatever the current CSA test is, and then manufacturers may have done some independent testing that you could check with them on.
Okay, perfect. I hope that this meets Patrick's question. Feel free to keep sending your questions as we go along, but I do have a question from Mike. What applications would you use a traditional or overhead SRL versus leading edge?
So when it comes to, we didn't talk much about like overhead usage of SRLs, and there's obviously there's lots of different applications for that. When I think of some basic work in construction, when they're doing some work positioning or some work on tying rebar or something like that, where you're falling vertically straight down and you don't risk coming in contact with the edge of the rebar in any way. Typically confined space. And where you're descending vertically into that confined space or entering a tank or something like that, there's really not always a risk of coming in contact with an edge in that type of application. And then your basic like I said, typically when you're tied off overhead, I'm thinking about some applications in plants where they have SRLs permanently hanging from the ceiling, or let's say you're in an airplane hangar and they've got the SRL kind of attached to the ceiling, you just pull the tagline down. Any type of situation really where your SRL's overhead and you're not exposed to an open edge there, is going to be appropriate for an overhead SRL or a class SRL. And then when you get into leading edge, obviously, like I said, we talked about in construction, decking. Any type of decking work is typically leading edge. I've seen people in general industry ask for leading edge products because of work that they're doing on a catwalk, where that person is kind of walking up and down a catwalk, and there's a potential for them to fall over the edge there. So that's kind of an example outside of construction. that I can provide. That's kind of, like I said, a good summary. If you're overhead, something basic like confined space, you typically are not going to need a leading edge product.
All right, thank you, Anne. I don't see any more questions, but to let people maybe think about their questions, I will go back up a few slides, and I'll ask you if MSA and SPI can help you with an audit of your fall protection equipment or a demonstration of MSA's leading edge fall protection product, maybe help you choose the appropriate PPE. Can help you be trained or train your employees in fall protection, or help you with the maintenance, repair, and certification of your PPE. So we'll give you a few seconds to answer. Again, that doesn't tie you up to anything, just, allows you to make sure that everything's covered. And we'll see if more questions are coming. There were a few. We've answered the web as strong as the cable version, so I guess you were clear, Anne, because doesn't seem to be any more questions.
Well, that's okay. If you think of anything, I think, you've provided the information who they can reach out to, and we're here and we're happy to help.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. All right. Awesome. So, Anne, I want to thank you for your time today, for your expertise, for explaining everything. It was very interesting. I like like you said, your engineered drawings and everything.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. I'm a visual person. It's the first time I see that like that. I loved it. So thanks for joining us from from Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. So for our audience, just before we let you go, again, if you have questions, by all means, reach out to us. You have our contact information on your screen. Our next webinar will be June 16, and we'll talk about eye protection. You can contact Audrey to register, again, at marketing@spi-s.com, or call her directly to register. We are on the web. Obviously, we have a blog. We have a blog section on our website, which we actually have an article where we explain with MSA, some differentiation, important elements for the leading edge. So if you want to, read maybe a little bit about that, we'll, you can go on our website and look that out. Obviously, we're on social media. And before, just want to remind you to answer our short survey. It's really a lot of interesting information for us to continue to provide you with free webinars such as this one. And I want to say, again, thank you, Anne. Thank you, Rico, for your help in the back end. You don't see it, but he's working really hard. And we hope the presentation met your expectations. On behalf of SPI and MSA, I wish you a great day. And again, folks, be safe.
Thanks, everyone.